Hello. My name is Man, and this is probably the first time you've ever heard my voice. So, welcome to my first guide on how to do quick shadows, uh, and quick shadows and lighting. So, let's just begin immediately. So, to first begin, we would first need the first step to creating a shadows is you would need to pick a direction for where you want your shadows to be, because shadows can your lighting direction can actually help influence how your piece feels. So if you wanted your drawing to be more dramatic, um, then you would probably do well by hiding it, by cutting off your light before it reaches the eyes and or something like that. I will just quickly demonstrate this by just having a direction. So I want my light to come from this direction. I want it to come from the top down diagonally, right? So the so now that we have a direction, we're gonna start painting. So before we start painting, we of course need to pick a color a color that you want. For the shadows that we're gonna do, we're gonna do a coloring technique called cell shading, which usually involves one color. So it's a lot simpler to learn, and that's what we're gonna be running today. So I'm gonna be using this color right here that I already have on my palette. So we're gonna start by going to our flat here. You can see I already have my flat colors ready to go. So all we need to do really is just create a clipping mask, so that you don't have to actually paint outside of the outside of your borders. It makes it a lot easier rather than having to deal with trying to erase like the edges, trying to make it all line up. Yeah. So this process would be having good line art can really help with your flats, because but then you can like fill them in really nice and you don't have to actually like erase stuff just to get the look right. But that's beyond like the point of this video. So make a new layer, make it above the flats layer, and then I'm going to turn it into multiply. Let's put it to 50%, right? So now that we have that, we're going to start painting. So you can use whatever brush you like, but I tend to just want to use an airbrush or a large like airbrush instead, just to fill it in really quick. So it's gonna do this one, just fill it in as you can see. So once you fill this in, I'm using a technique. I'm using a different technique, which is just to paint with light instead of painting with shadows. Painting with shadows is a different story. It's more like painting with shadows would be more of a traditional one if you were in a more brightly lit room where you have fewer shadows. So you would do something like this one. Apparently they didn't like this one. Yeah, you would paint them manually, like maybe here, that sort of thing. But that's not what we're doing today. We'll be doing this one. So it's a full flood. Then we'll just take our eraser. It can be in any one you want. You can use a big softy if you want. And we're just gonna erase the parts that we want to be in light, which is that's it. So we'll just do this one. We'll just make it big. We'll just make it like big. We don't have to worry about like the precision for now. Just erase this one, because we you just have to, if you can imagine Omni-Man's body here as a shape, as like a kind of a shape, then you can sort of get where to put the lighting. So in this case, I'm imagining his body to be kind of like a slanted surface, a flat slanted surface. So it makes more sense to kind of make it look like this one. Then we'll just try to follow the shape of his cape's body, his cape and his suit. We'll just kind of blot out like large chunks of it, kind of like this one, right? Then we'll just do like a hard cutoff somewhere below his eyes, because I want to kind of have like a really cool, like a really cool look for him. So there you go. Then cut off here, somewhere around here. Right now it's looking a bit dim, right? But we can fix that, no problem. So right now, once we've already done this one, we can start filling it in with our smaller airbrush. We can start like detailing. So to do that, we're just gonna do this. We're kind of just fill in a bit of the gaps, maybe somewhere here. Uh, parts where skin meets skin, or something like that. Parts where skin meets skin. We'll just make it a bit darker. Just to make it fit. Fit like this, yeah. So you're just gonna want to go ahead and start detailing. Try to make it more detailed. uh maybe go in some of his like below his ear, something like that, and try to color it in according to the direction that you've set for yourself. So now that I've done this one, maybe he needs a bit of shadows here, maybe a bit here, just to indicate, then yeah, maybe here, because his costume kind of goes in just a little bit. You don't need to do it like in full. You probably don't need to do it because this is still shell shading. So the whole idea of it is supposed to be simple. It's not supposed to be overly realistic, something like that. So I'm employing the use of my blending tool here, just to help with making the edges a bit softer where they need to be. Something like here. I just need to be a bit softer here, maybe here, and then I'll just like kind of blend it here. Yeah, something like this. So once you've done this one, then maybe you can start going to work on the smaller shadows there. Maybe you make it more softer if you want them. Make it a bit softer. Maybe extend the shadow a little bit to encompass more of the piece. Maybe this here looks a bit sparse, so you can probably do something like, okay, let's just lighten this one, and then we'll just blend it, so it's not like an immediate so it's not indicating that it's directly lit, but more like it's the light's falling off, something like this. Right now it's not very dramatic, that's the thing. Maybe if you want it to be more dramatic, just increase like the opacity. That will probably help. If you want it to be darker, just increase the opacity or change the color to something else that you like. Yeah, I like it to be more dramatic, so that's what I did. I made it a bit darker. Maybe made a bit like a bit darker. So I don't like the look of some of the hard shadows. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna use my blending brush and just kind of soften it a little bit, to make it look like it's got a bit of depth in it, but not too much. Something like this one, maybe here where his lips, where his like the bottom of his lips meet. Yeah, under here. Yeah, just kind of places where you expect your wrinkles and stuff to cast shadows and such. You're just gonna work it real quick here. Maybe here. Yeah. So, this is in no way like a full fat version, because there's a ton more adjustments to do if you really wanted it to look more realistic. But this is probably pretty close to realistic lighting if you wanted that. Because it's got a mixture of hard and soft edges. Like right here, maybe something like this here. It's got a good mixture between both of them. So, there's like a good balance. But of course you can do however you want. If you wanted to have all hard edges, then you can also do that. That's usually how anime does it. This is just typically what I do. Yeah. So now that you've established this one, you've established your channels, right? And now you want to think, okay, but it's got the shadows, but I want lighting. It doesn't look realistic enough because it doesn't have any lighting on it. So to do that, we're just gonna do a pretty quick one, which is to add a overlay layer here. So this overlay layer will just serve as your lighting from your primary light. So what you're gonna do is kind of go around the edges here, maybe go a bit here. If it looks a bit too dark for you, you can you can increase it. You can do however you like. I tend to use the overlay layer. If not, you can use an add layer, which kind of simulates a more bloom effect, but it's a bit too strong for me right now. I got other uses for it later on, but you're kind of just using it to set the temperature of the light that's hitting his face. So, as you can see here, it kind of gives a more realistic look. It gives the impression like the light is blending into the shadows and kind of falling off from there. Of course, if you find it's too much, you can always reduce it just to if you want it to be a bit more subtle. Yeah, because sometimes it's a bit too strong, but of course you can always fix that one. So now that you've done your lighting, this is a really quick one, of course. Now you can do a bit of bloom. So we can use the same color if you want. You can keep using the same lighting color, but this time if you use the add one, it will amplify the brightness by quite a bit more than what overlay could do. So in this case, you can see here, it kind of made the edges of his skin kind of go a bit lighter, so we're gonna put this bloom effect where they would be the strongest. So it would be something like the top of your knuckles, sharp areas where light would most likely focus on, or just maybe a few select areas here, maybe like an edge, or maybe like an edge, something like that. Maybe the edge of his lips here, maybe the edge of his chin, that sort of place. Of course, don't overdo it. Because it's very easy to make your character look like it's very very oily if you do that. So try to keep it in moderation, just to add in a bit of flair here, maybe here, just to give it a bit of flavor. Right? Okay, as you can see here, we did a bit. If you don't quite like the look of it, maybe you can Gaussian blur it just to make it a bit more dimmer, or you can reduce its opacity, whatever you like to do. So I'm just gonna Gaussian blur a little bit, something like this, right? So it doesn't look too painted on. Of course, you can always do it a different way. Then now you can add another one, which is the same type, same layer mode, but with with more sharp, hard angles. So this one's harder. So you're essentially painting the hard edges. So you maybe have a little bit of bleed here, Yeah, have a little bit of bleed. Then paint some like the edges of your character's face, maybe here, his nose, those kinds of places. If it's too bright, then of course you turn it down. Then here. So these are like the highlights you want that you want, like me. So you're gonna have it like a bit on his mustache there. Maybe here, maybe a bit on his suit, right here. you know, just to give it like a highlight. Right here. Yeah, but essentially, yeah, we'll just use it like just to give a bit of a highlight, to show that his skin does reflect light. Of course, if it's too strong, then just turn it down. Something like this. And yeah, put it here. Yep, there you go. All right. So now you add a bit of highlights here. If it's too strong, then just put it a bit higher up. Yeah, like this. Now, the final piece of the puzzle actually is adding rim lighting, or not rim lighting, ambient lighting for the edges, for the parts of his body that are not lit by, that are not directly lit. So we call this the secondary light. So this would be reflected lighting, which would come from the opposite of, which would be coming from the opposite of where your action will be, where your what was this? It'd be coming from where the opposite of where this arrow would be. So that'll be coming from here. So let's pick. So I picked a kind of a cayenne, kind of jade color, to kind of contrast against the red color, mostly reddish hue of this piece. So we're just gonna start doing that one. Now I used to do it in overlay, but I kind of found it a bit more appealing if I just use a normal layer with whatever bright color that I want. Maybe I'm feeling like I want it to be a bit brighter, you know. I'll just have it be here, maybe have it maximum. Just to make it like more appealing looking, yeah. So I'll just start painting the edges of, you know, the edges of this piece to kind of look like it's coming from the opposite end. Then yeah, here, then, you know, where we would realistically meet. So let's see here. Here, you know, just the edges, parts of his body. Then maybe at his hair, and have it. You kind of have it here. Just a little bit, you know. That doesn't have to be as strong as this one. You can have it a bit more subtle, and maybe just have like a bit of this here, if you want. I like it a bit more bombastic kind of here. Yeah, something like this one. Then we'll add it like at his neck here. Yeah, anywhere that can catch a light. Anywhere, any kind of edge that can catch a light, you can try putting it that one. It does add to it, especially if it's like a complementary color. It's quite nice. At least I think it looks kind of nice. And that's actually kind of it. If you don't like the look of like a harder edge, then maybe you can like Gaussian blur it or blur it out manually. But the way I do it, of course, is use Gaussian blur. Just kind of do this one so it gives it kind of an edge. Yeah, there you go. Something like this one. Then, you know, then I'll just probably put a bit more finishing touches on some parts of his body, perhaps. You know, for the highlights here, I probably put on his lips over here too. Then I'll just kind of fix it. Yeah, something like this one, just to give it a bit more of a sheen. Now, if you wanted to look more human, you can also do a bit of a blush for his skin. So you can do it by adding it here. I just add it above. It doesn't have to be any fancy. It doesn't have to be a fancy layer mode. Just add it like a bit of pink maybe. Then just lightly kind of introduce it to his cheek perhaps. Maybe to his nose, parts of his body where the blood vessels would be the most obvious, so probably his ear too. It's just a little bit. It probably doesn't seem as obvious, but of course it does make a bit of a difference to making everything look more nice and supple. His skin's a bit more supple here. It looks more human. And perhaps here. But since we did that, we can also increase the highlight color, the highlight strength. Then yeah, maybe reduce the color here if it's too strong. Alright. Probably have to mix this one up here. But essentially that is the gist of it. Yeah. So like what I showed here, there's probably a lot more. There's definitely a lot more ways to do it. I'm just showing the ones that the method that I find the fastest to do, which is this one. So yeah, thanks for joining me. Thanks for joining me and watching my video and this guide. I do hope you found it useful. If it did, just let me know. If you're not, let me know what I can improve, or like if you think like maybe I got some part wrong, don't hesitate, let me know. Yeah, but yeah, do enjoy, and yeah, thanks.